I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Yo, Quo Man, get the fuck off that punk smooth shit, man. Get with that rough shit, man. You know how we do. In the words of the late Hurricane G. Wow. Welcome to Cookies. Sorry. Go on. Yes, rest in peace. Go on.
Right. That was a really heartfelt intro, man. We got a lot of deaths this week to talk about.
Well, welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. FYI. Yeah. Not to make light of the death of Hurricane G, but to honor her famous intro from Redman's Tonight's the Night.
And Redman's cousin. Shout out to Dame One.
Wait, was Tame One Redman's cousin?
Tame One. Yeah. They were related. New Jersey.
Oh, I mean, I knew they were both from New Jersey. I remember Artifacts. The instrumental to Wrong Side of the Tracks was like the one that I kind of mixed all the acapellas with when I was learning to DJ with vinyl. It's like I can't remember. I mean, I don't know how it goes. It's just like exactly.
It was kind of like a lazy beat. Yeah. It was the beginner's beat juggling tool. I had two of those too. And it was like kind of easy, kind of like the beats were kind of like easy to manipulate. So that was like the Ronzoni pasta of chefs.
Well, remember when Eminem was first kind of coming up, he was vaguely affiliated with like the Outsiders and like Rod Digga. And I think that was also part of that kind of Jersey scene. I felt like Eminem shouted Tame One out as well. I think
on a mixtape?
I thought on a song. I think he just shouted him out. I think he was like somehow involved with that crew. I don't remember how that happened. It might have just been like the Battle MC circuit, which is probably what it was, since they were all battle rappers.
Yeah. I mean, the come up of all those rappers kind of like they were part of supergroup. I think Tame One was part of a group with LP and a bunch of Def Jux people, and it's funny, right? It's like it's a legendary group, and I'm like, yeah, kind of, totally, but
they all hang out at Max Fish.
Yeah, that's right. And the Artifacts were really popular in my tiny world, but did they kind of reach outside of New Jersey and Fat Beats?
I doubt it, but I feel like the legacy of the Artifacts is a couple of their instrumentals being used in skating videos for the rest of eternity. Like, all right, they're doing some kickflips, drop Wrong Side of the Tracks. There it is.
Right. I mean, that whole era I remember so vividly, man. Like the Zoo, hanging out in the Zoo York office, like listening to like all these records. Everyone would just come through after like going record shopping, and everyone was really excited about the Artifacts, man. That was a very appealing single with the graffiti and the black borders. Like, I don't know how much were singles then, like $4.99.
Yeah, they're about $5.
Yeah, very appealing band to me at the time. But I re-listened to the first record, record from '94, and I had the same impression I did when I heard it the first time. So nice to listen to, really pleasing, but like nothing except the song about Black Israelites and Black Jerusalem. Like that was interesting to hear again in 2022. But it didn't reach out to me as like these guys are going to be superstars. Like we are going to anticipate their next release and it's going to be a burner. Like none of that. They were just kind of like local guys.
It's funny when you look at them now because they represent an era, but even at that time they represented an idea. They were graffiti guys. They were breakdancers. Like they were almost revivalist in a sense, despite the fact that they came out in the early 90s, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Because by 94, you had Snoop, you had Dre, you had the West Coast rise of like non-traditional New York non-boom bap like gangster music, and the Artifacts were even a traditionalist going back 30 years ago.
Yeah, I felt, well, to your point, Doggy Style came out in 93. And that's the feeling I had with the Artifacts, too. I'm like, I love this. This feels like a hometown team. But there's some really exciting music coming from out in LA. And there's also something bubbling up in Atlanta that's interesting to me. But, like, still, you know, there's not that many records to buy. There were certainly more records to buy back in the day than there is now to stream, I think. Like, maybe not. But it was a prerequisite. You walk out with the Wrong Side of the Track single if you visit Fat Beats. You just have to have it.
Right, because this era was kind of the first splintering of like regionalism in rap on a broad sense. Like obviously there were local rap scenes, but when New York did not cede the crown, but started having to recognize, oh, the West Coast rap is like winning the charts. And then Outkast came out in '94, and you started seeing the South bubbling up, and then UGK came out after that, and you started seeing, you know, mainstream labels with artists that were not New York centric. And it was kind of a moment of reckoning for the East Coast, and there was a lot of emphasis on this exact kind of stuff that we're talking about with the Artifacts, like real rap. And then that went into De La Soul and the Fugees and this whole idea of like what rap is supposed to be, and you know, the foundations of hip hop and KRS-One. And it kind of was in some ways a little bit of the demise of the East Coast too, because instead of moving things forward, it became very like regressive. Yeah.
I mean, we always talk about authenticity in terms of food and like basketball, but it kind of, my whole vocabulary to talk about all this started with like rap music, right? It's like, that's not real. This is real. I remember people were claiming Eminem was the most real, some people, because he was so technically proficient. And then when he signed to a major label and started working with Dre, everyone's like, he's not real anymore. I'm like, he has not put out a song with them yet. Like, how do we know? It was just like a vibe.
Well, he was an MC when he first started, and then he became a rapper.
Right. Right.
That was the most tiresome of all debates.
Yeah. I mean,
shout out to Rasheed Wallace on Rap City deciding who was an MC and who was a rapper. And then E40 got mad at him because he called him a rapper. I'm just trying to look at Master P's discography right now. 91, 92, 94, 95. Yo, he was very active in this era too. I mean, but I did not know his stuff until
MP
he
the
came
Last
out with
Dawn.
like True.
Right, right.
You know, until About It, I had never heard Master P.
Cause yeah, always No Limit, and like the whole Bad Boy Death Row thing. Like No Limit, they had numbers, man. They sold some records, but did you hear that Puff is a certified billionaire?
I believe it.
Yeah. Have you been catching?
He's been making money off of other people for a long time.
I know, right? And vodka. And well, Sean John was big for sure. Is it done now? I have not kept up. I know there was like fumes of it still.
I don't think it still exists. But you know, I mean,
Supreme, do your thing.
Yeah. Also, you know, shout out to the guys who went and started like public school, who were both working. You know, Dow and Maxwell, who were both working for Sean John before that. So, like, at least there's a Sean John legacy.
Oh, for sure.
Well, also, public school doesn't exist anymore. But they're still around, still doing things.
Yo, did you see that viral video of the kids in Halloween? Maybe it was like junior high, before junior high. And the theme was all 90s rap. So they would all roll in with, like, beepers and flip phones and like huge denim wash and like Sean John tops, like tilted snapbacks. I was psyched, man, and I know I'm washed for real when I look at that and I'm like, they look tight, it looks amazing, bring it all back.
You've experienced this phenomenon, right, where you see photos and you can't actually place when it was?
You mean fashion wise?
Yeah, you'll just quickly look at a photo and be like, Is that from 1997, or did you just take that today? Because it's so referential.
Yeah. I mean, is that so? They say like every 18 years, like it cycles through. By the time like young people can buy their own stuff, when they become adults, like it is kind of like the vague cyclic kind of fashion thing. And
Yeah, I always thought it was like 15 to 18. That was generally
yeah,
like the time that you said, the turnaround between when something first came out and then when it reemerged. But at this point, we're on so many different
I know.
permutations and like
Dude.
cycles. I don't even know where we are.
and like it happened simultaneously because back in the day, that was kind of a cacophony of different vibes. Like you had Marilyn Manson, you had Backstreet Boys. It was all happening at the same time, right? And the world did not look like Sean John exclusively, but like that was our world.
But I think you made a good point, though, because when we're talking about the 90s, and the 90s were so influential in terms of the Gen X output, basically. Skating, rap, punk. Not punk that they invented it, but that it was like part of like the motif of Gen X was. And it had such a cultural imprint that it's been really lingered as a stylistic reference point much longer than it normally would have. I think we would have cruised into, early 2000s, mid 2000s in much more of a full way if the 90s didn't have such appeal.
Yeah, and it was like the last time of many things. I'm obsessed with the 90s and Gen X being the last generation to feel actual boredom before there was work to do on like IG and Twitter. But like that was the last time where you can declare a lot of thoughts by the way you looked. I mean, of course you can do that now, but like the 90s were really intense. Like, oh, you're into rock and roll, so you probably think this. Oh, you're into rap music, so you probably think this, and goth and whatever and so on. It was a really nice, eventful kind of hobby. I don't know how to describe a culture or whatever, but like I remember I had my one of my friends was from the South, and he was just like, you guys, the good music is down there. And he made it a point to dress a certain way to make people know that. So when they rolled up to him and be like, what are you wearing? It's like, I'm actually from Atlanta, and this is what we wear from Atlanta,
Right.
Not unlike a blue a bandana or something.
You know what also occurred to me is that, early 90s are 30 years ago.
Dude, I know.
So actually, we're on the second cycle.
Yeah.
So that would make sense that, let's say 2005, 2006, people were like starting to get into 90s stuff, and that was after sort of the 80s like infatuation that American Apparel and all that kind of stuff. Then it went 90s, and now we're on like 90s 2.
LA Apparel.
Well, actually, we're on 90s 3.
More 90s?
Fuck, we're in the midst of a 90s revival again?
Oh my god. Well, like this week has been kind of eventful with like a lot of like this band Low from the 90s. Like she passed away of cancer, which is kind of a big bummer. I was really into this band back in the day, of other music and going to see shows at the Knitting Factory, and it's wild to talk about them because they changed their sound 4 or so years ago. They were always this minimal, beautiful band, and then they flipped it and like started using this new sound, and it was like so exciting. And I was so excited for an artist to age like that, and then all this happens, and then you realize like to your point, a 30-year, maybe like the third iteration of your creative cycle. Like that's amazing. That's a life well lived, I think.
And this brings us to the lone good news. And it's really emotional for me. RX Pappy has been freed.
Oh my god.
That's right. And look, I will say, I spent a lot of time on New York inmate lookup, checking in to see when Pappy would be freed. And this was the first day he was eligible. sitting there, November 11th. November 3rd. That was the date. That was his first time he had the opportunity to get out, and my man is free. Went straight to Rochester, and he sent a message out to everyone, and it was inspiring. What he said was, "Eat a dick."
Man, we've been on the free pap bandwagon for a long time. As long as he didn't do anything bad. But the whole time I've been like, free pap. As long as he didn't do anything creepy. Like, no Josh Primo stuff. Okay, free pap, man.
Let him out. Assuming nothing too crazy happened there.
Yeah. 9 times? Oh, what about 7 times?
We don't even need to talk about the Primo thing because we talked about it last episode before the details came out. And I will say neither of us took the free Primo stance.
No, that was...
He's been freed. He's been freed 9 times.
Right. Well, 8 times. The 9th time, not so much.
Look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those were accidental. Little Primo was just out. Accidentally. One time, yes, I exposed myself to that one. But the other ones, also accidental. Maybe 2 were Primo exposing himself intentionally. The other ones, I swear to God, no idea that my schlong was visible. No idea, no clue.
I mean, was he doing a physical? And did Little Primo make a appearance a few seconds before he was supposed to? I don't know. But after 8 times, buddy, Little Primo is kind of wearing out his welcome.
It's not funny. It sucks for everyone involved.
Yes.
Like that poor woman who was
Yes.
exposed to Primo 9 times, and she's got a lawsuit going that even Pop, the great orator, can't talk about. But I'm sorry, 9 times is just funny by default. Like, it happened again.
Right.
He was releasing Little Primo quarterly.
Wow. Yeah.
Like an earnings report.
Well,
Anyway, free Primo unless he exposed himself 9 times to a member of the Spurs organization.
listen, it's fine as long as it's like a hazy couple times. One bona fide time, not so good. But like 2, 3, but then you're back to a hazy one where you got to do another checkup. But how many times does your Little Primo have to make an appearance for a checkup when you're like 19 years old?
Also, she was a psychologist.
Oh, my bad. Well, body, mind. They're all connected, Ben.
It's all body, mind. Yeah.
Oh, that's bad.
Again, that poor woman. It happened again.
How many
times is this? 9 times.
I was trying to think if like we rolled with someone like Josh Primo, and like in the span of 2 years, we saw Little Primo 9 times. I'd be like, dude, we have to stop hanging out with you. This is ridiculous. Like,
No. That was accidental. Also, it's the last time.
would someone Draymond Green him at like 6?
Looks like Little Primo has been put to sleep.
I mean, you got to defend yourself. If Little Primo's out, you have to be in a defensive state of mind. Nothing's a sucker punch at that point. Little Primo has been declared.
So anyway, Pappy is freed.
That's right.
And my understanding from his crimes, his history of crime, is that the one that he was in prison for was a parole violation for robberies that occurred a while back.
What kind of robberies are we talking about? Like snatching
like
chains?
pulling guns on people and stealing their money, their chains, their possessions. Yeah.
Or could he have been working the stock market and shorting some harmless company and betting on their demise and then profiting off of like the opportunities lost by others?
Was there some sort of train heist that he was involved in? A stagecoach robbery, perhaps?
So he didn't actually buy Twitter. A bunch of banks bought Twitter. So he's playing with funny money. Man, that's not good.
So are you having a blue check meltdown right now over Twitter? Is that what's happening? Is that what I'm hearing? I'm picking up from you?
As you know, I have been intentional and unintentionally anti-blue check my whole Twitter existence. I'm a 5'5" king,
You are.
but not that 5'5" king.
Is Twitter done? Is it a dub? Is Elon put the stake through the heart of Twitter? And secondary question that I also want you to address: what's going on here?
First of all, what? And second of all, what?
Who? Oh,
Dude, it's hilarious. Twitter's back, baby. Like, finally, some shenanigans, some Shamrock shenanigans, some chaos, whatever you want to call it. I stand by the idea that, like, I do not want Twitter to enter a golden age where we're on here for 20 more years. Like, let's let it go, man. Some of us have been on Twitter like for a third of our lives. Like, forget this stuff, man. We can move on. It's not that hard to get news.
first of all,
Second of all, what? I mean, you're part of the blue check elite.
And honestly, it really is what I view as my personal status. You know, like when I
Right.
walk into a Christmas restaurant, I say, "Sir, you've got a blue check man on premises. Take me to your ornaments. I need some tinsel ASAP."
Here are my top 5 pizza slices, and by my blue check, you know this is the real shit. Number 1.
It's my identity.
Yeah. I think it does make people happy, though, and it does float a lot. Like, Valerie Bertinelli's happy she's part of, like, active blue check Twitter. Like, this is great for her. She's had some tragedy in her life. Rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. I think they were separated, but on good terms. But, I'm not saying this blue check stuff doesn't mean a lot to people. Gatekeeping is awesome. Verification is great. But LOL, dude, like, I didn't know this many people cared about Twitter in this way. Like, the news is important. Whatever. Talking is obviously important. But, like, we don't need Twitter, right?
I'm with you. I think part of this is Twitter's just lasted too long. And
Man.
if you look at the sort of lifespan that goes along with social networks, things change their functionality. But, Twitter just collapsing in one day and no one being there, I don't think that's going to occur because there isn't an alternative. I think what will eventually happen is that, Elon or not, there will be alternatives that people go to, and there will eventually be a shift. Whether that happens right now or later on, I think it's the natural life cycle of all these things. It's not going to end in one day. It'll start withering in the way that Facebook did. People just started posting somewhere else. And started using it for something different.
It's like, if you don't like Elon, well, Zuck is kind of bad. Oh, there's TikTok. Who owns TikTok? Oh, that's a shadow hand of the Chinese government. Like, what?
Someone I can trust, TikTok.
What drugs is Elon on? For real, though. Bunch of mushrooms, always high off of weed, I'm sure. Does he take pills, you think? What is he on? He's not sober.
I'm trying to remember what I've heard from people who have potentially hung out with him. But yeah, maybe I'm just thinking of Azealia Banks.
Who hung out with him famously.
And she was saying, what, acid, shrooms? I forget. I felt like there were psychedelics in her.
Absolutely.
Elon,
I mean, he said so on Joe
report.
Rogan, right? Like, I've hung out with Grimes. This was during Elon, I think. Not like I wasn't at a dinner table with Grimes, but I was around her a couple times, and she seemed like pretty normal and not as erratic as her husband, even though the reputation originally was the other way around. And I'm trying to think, like, he is not acting like a sober person, but he seems to be enough in control of his thoughts and actions where it seems like he's doing this all on purpose. I don't think it's by accident. I think it's funny, but, like, also, I just cannot.
There's something odd here, though. To your point, is the disorienting part of it, not for me because I just don't really care, but for like the New York Times, which is reporting about Elon Musk and Twitter as if it's breaking news from the front of World War II.
Are they?
Like Normandy stormed. It's like breaking confusion at Twitter. I'm like, Jesus, dude.
Yeah.
Like, how is this going to affect the midterms? I don't know, man.
Right.
But yeah, like the sense of urgency and newsworthiness to this is a little shocking. But again, I think people are disoriented because they don't know what his idea is. Is ultimately it's just going to remain the same, and he's going to wheel out a few things that sort of maybe make some more money or troll blue check Twitter and own the libs? Or is his investment in this thing ultimately going to mean that he kind of has to keep it the same? I don't know what his goal is here. Is the idea to make it profitable by laying off huge amounts of the staff and charging people $8 a month? Like, maybe that will technically make it worth more, and then he can sell it for more. I don't really know what his goal is here.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter has no proprietary stuff of value. It's got value of, I think we talked about this last week. Mm-hmm. Like, he doesn't own the users. The users can bounce. But I do feel like he is, his tactic is good here. If this is what you're interested in. And what I mean by that is he's doing the Fox News Trump thing where he's just all over the place, but incredibly engaging. Like, people are very interested in him being this hands-on, and the Kathy Griffin suspension, people like imitating his or people renaming their profiles Elon Musk with the blue check mark. So if you retweet it, it just says Elon Musk has retweeted. And it's bringing some traffic back to Twitter. I don't think he believes in free speech. I think he thinks this is like chaotic and good, but I also think he doesn't have much to lose here. The price tag was in the billions, but this is not his own money. He doesn't have billions of dollars. He has assets worth $1 billion, and he just moves them around in this like imaginary or not imaginary world of finance. Elon Musk is not staring at a stack of billions of dollars and like giving you a part of it. Like, banks pay for it. He leverages loans. Like, so this kind of means nothing to him. And to catch and kill this because he's holding a grudge against 5 people, whatever. Like, we'll either not have this or move on. You know.
Right. I that's kind of what I'm trying to parse as well. Is he just trying to ruin it and make it like a garbage plate?
But
and then say,
we enjoy garbage
right,
plates, right?
We're done here.
Right.
Or is he trying to, be the main character, and it's all about Elon. It's all about Elon. He's going to do things to make it, monetize. They're going to drive profits now. They're going to have subscriptions, and then is he going to cool out and just kind of have it be normal, and then try to sell it and make money? I just don't know what his game plan is, but maybe he doesn't have one. Maybe he's just rolling with it.
Yeah, I was trying to think about, like, we've debated billionaires on here quite a bit, but like, I've always been kind of agnostic with Elon Musk. I'm like, yeah, well, Tesla's kind of like a stupid company on one level, but kind of like an extraordinary company on another level. And it's certainly his vision. But, when he gets on Twitter and we can find out more of his thoughts, it's like, people who earn this amount of money aren't smarter than people who don't have this amount of money who are also smart. It's they figured out loopholes and they've gone through streams of like triggers that generate wealth for them. Elon Musk got very rich during the pandemic because of the wildness of the stock market and the IPOization of like that field. And to watch him talk like a stone dude with a grudge is funny because he's always been a stone dude with a grudge, but has had a way to get to this societal level where it's just like, well, he's a billionaire, so he must have done something right. Like, we talk about Trump in those terms. Like, well, he is the biggest moron I've ever seen with a microphone in front of his face. But how stupid can he be if he ends up being president? I'm like, this is not how the Boston Celtics got to the finals. They weren't that good, right? There's like there's dominoes that fall. If you can't post that meme and not understand this concept, the small domino is not the thing that you see at the end. Like there's a cause and effect for everything, and a lot of it isn't based off of like what you think it is. But
I think you could say that one of the main benefits, in fact, of Twitter is exactly what you were describing. Seeing that these wealthy and powerful people, when given an opportunity, will reveal that they are imbeciles.
or someone like me talking about the Knicks will reveal that I'm an imbecile while watching the game.
You will reveal yourself as brilliant.
Thanks. Woo, that was a test, and thankfully you passed. But like, yeah, to your point, right? Like Stephen King gets on there and starts engaging with Elon Musk. I'm like, oh, I guess it was all right. Pet Sematary was kind of cool. It's like that loses some shine off of his work a bit.
Oh, it's like, here comes David Simon to call someone like
Oh my God.
a fuckwit shit pamper.
Yeah, I know. It's like, act like you've been there, buddy. But like, I don't know what smart people look like, right? Because smart people are boring inherently. These are just people who want to be entertainers at this point. They've done great work. I love The Wire, but his Twitter account's entertainment. And I think that if Elon Musk is thinking about that idea, where he's just like, you all are being weird, like, let me start something. That's exactly what he's doing. And I don't think he's proving a good point, but he's proving a point.
That's that's fair. There's a point being proven somewhere here.
That's uncomfortable,
someone.
right? Like, we have all become performative in a way that we're like this funhouse mirror of what we actually think. None of this is actual, true, or provable, or worth our time, right? Like, it is all distortion. And
Yeah. I've been thinking about this in two ways, sort of, and one of them is what you were describing. Like, this is just a social media network. I know that it's media heavy, and not social media, but like media heavy. Like, there are a lot of journalists and writers. It's a form of news, breaking news. It's our own individualized, ticker. That's basically what it is. Whether it's for humor or sports or whatever, it's real time. Here's what's going on, and there is a value to that. And we've become very accustomed to getting our information in that way. Like, it's fairly rare when I will go to a website to see what's going on. Like, Twitter just serves as, the conduit for a torrent of information.
I stopped going to ESPN. I just go straight. I Google names on Twitter. Josh.
That's
Primo.
what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, little Primo. But yeah, same deal, and it has that functionality. And without that, if it was just down, I'd be like, okay, I guess I have to start going back to websites again.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, Twitter can be replaced easily as long as people migrate. So I don't view it as like this incredible tool. It's just what we now use. When we were growing up, it's like, this is the white pages. Mm-hmm. Like, look up where your friend lives. This is how you find out their phone number. Here's it's crazy. Everyone's names and phone numbers and addresses were just fucking listed publicly.
How did you guys date?
It seems crazy.
How did you date before apps? I'm like, hang on.
Yeah, right. That's exactly.
Go to the
that's
Artifacts
exactly. But that's the total comparison to Twitter. Like, what did you guys even do before Twitter? Like, you mean like when it got popular around like 2011? How did we get information prior to that? Like, we had the internet, man.
I know. Yeah, I do feel like, and it would. I don't have that much hubris where I think like this idea is done. I think it'll get better and better, and like. But I was thinking about Google the other day. Remember, we used to think before we had everything was Googleable. We thought smart people knew stuff. It's like, oh my God, you know who's running for governor in Washington State? Like, this guy's a genius. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh wait, who did like we can just find out. Like, and like the way I just looked up Master P's like discography. If someone knew that, off the dome, I'd be like, yo, you're a rap genius, man. I need to.
Bout It came out in 1997.
Yeah. I'd be like,
Whoa.
wow, we
Look at
need
this
to.
big brain over here.
Yeah, we need to hang out. But, like, it is just a thing that we know how to do now. And
You know Greg Swindell's ERA?
Greg Swindell. Cleveland Indians?
Yes.
I think. Rookie 1987? Was that it?
Okay, we got ourselves a genius.
No. But tops rated rookie. That's all I know. But it has changed the way we talk about stuff because, like, it's hard to get a takeoff, right? And, like, rest in peace, takeoff. And I feel like the authenticity angle is it's the easiest discussion we have. It's like, well, I know you're saying us all this stuff, but why should I listen to you? Is the discussion. And this is the whole debate around this check mark. And I think Elon Musk's short idea is like, yeah, everyone can have a check mark, so let's just get rid of them. Which, like we talked about last episode, is good and bad. I just don't care enough to preserve it. It'll police itself. But the game he's playing, in a way, is similar to the game Kyrie Irving's playing, and it's super boring.
It's exhausting and tiresome. And I'm not even exhausted by it in the sense that it's bothering me. I just don't care about this Elon situation. If it leads to good jokes, I'm here. Like I would like to see some funny things. If it makes Elon freak out, also funny.
Yeah.
And revealing himself as petty and weird is amusing. But we already knew that about him. We haven't gotten any new sides of Elon.
No.
Like this is still the same dude. But just briefly backtracking to the idea of like looking stuff up. Are there times when you just don't want to look stuff up? Like you'd be talking with the friends about which albums and stuff like that. And you're like, we could look this up, but let's not.
We've been doing this for years, right?
Yeah, let's talk this out. And if we're right or right, it doesn't really matter. There's just no reason to even confirm this because it's going to hamstring the conversation. We want to reminisce about the artifacts. Like, let's not go and go to Wiki and be like, all right, well, anyway, Elda Sensei went on to join this. Like, let's just talk. Just reminisce about the wrong side of the tracks and come on, get down with the get down.
This kind of happened years ago where socially, if you're talking about something, let's say how many steals RJ Barrett has, and someone reaches for their phone and starts tapping, like that is a social faux pas. I'm like, oh, we can't talk anymore. Like if we're just going to like one up each other with like actual real information, then we're not hanging anymore. So like every time someone like reaches for their phone to like reference something, even as other people are debating something, I'm like, put your hands up because someone's going to Draymond Green you, man. Stay in a protective state of mind right here.
It's like we're trying to talk about the artifacts. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Looks like that album came out in 1994.
I hate when people study for the test, or maybe they're cheating as they're taking the test.
Look, a genius keeps it up here. And up here, I'm tapping my temple. A genius knows facts.
Well, shout out to the Houston Astros.
Or looks them up earlier or later, but not in the middle of the conversation.
We like cheaters, but we just like funny cheaters. Looking stuff up on your phone, not that funny.
No, not funny. So yeah, we mentioned earlier Tame One passing away. I don't know how he died. Hurricane G passed away of cancer. I think they were both 52. And then you'd mentioned Takeoff earlier, who was killed in Houston at an event that I think was at a bowling alley. Was hosted by maybe Jay Prince's son or Jay Prince.
It was a birthday party, I believe. Rented the whole place out.
Like fucking awful, just beyond awful that that occurred, and it's the other rappers are dying prematurely. Tame One, Hurricane G, but guys, under 30 years old, it seems as if rappers just keep getting killed. This is PNB Rock was not that long ago. That was a month or so ago.
Right.
And it just keeps happening. and it's just a huge bummer.
And it's crazy because, I like to, when I hear about these stories, I like to just be like, well, like, life is like, just because I'm so scared of death that just the idea is so terrifying to me that I have to take like a walking, talking stance of just like, well, we can't live forever, and like we can't care about everybody we don't know. But when I heard this, I was like, yo, that's crazy, because the Migos seem like such like a spiritually protected trio. Where I'm like, they go through stuff, but like everyone just kind of loves them except for Joe Budden, and even they came across in that whole like viral video, and I just felt like they were so famous and so universally respected that it's just like no one's gonna shoot one of them in the head.
Right. No, I agree. I felt like they had sort of
they're kind of jovial,
superseded that level where you were imperiled, and obviously bad things can always happen to anybody. There's always a possibility of that, especially if you're famous and you've got jewelry on. I mean, there's an opportunity that people
1,000.
may take. Like, that's always going to happen. But I just thought that they were at a status where they were protected, and this would not happen to those guys. But I think it just goes to show you that, if you are young and you're a rapper and you're hanging out, like, things can just happen. And I'm the last person to say you shouldn't hang out. Like, just be careful and exercise caution, because this happens to rappers and it doesn't happen to like actors. It's not happening to like a young, I don't know, like Seth Rogen.
Chalamet. Yeah.
Right. It's just like, it's unfortunate, but rappers just have to be more careful.
What's up with Jay Prince, man? I thought when you go to Houston, you check in, and if you're with Jay Prince, I assume you're protected. And there's been talk of this dice game about how Quavo was like losing pretty big, and there was words, and Quavo's own team started the shooting and hit Takeoff by accident.
That was the version of the story that first came out, and honestly the one that I heard. So if you've heard more beyond that, that's news to me. I'm just saying that was the version that I heard of the story.
There's been like people who were there who posted on TikTok, and it's been bounced around Twitter and stuff. Like, there was no dice game. Like, what dice are we talking about? You think this is over dice? Like, he was shot in the head cleanly once, and then through the chest cleanly again by his own dude. Like, you guys can believe whatever you want, but there was no dice game. And I was like, this also seems plausible. Like, the first thing you do if you're in that situation is like, make up a story. What is it going to be? Dice game? Okay, let's just run with that. Or maybe it was actual dice, right? But that is I don't frown on gang stuff as much as maybe I should. But like, to me, it's like a way for people to protect themselves who are doing something that needs protection, whether that be like racketeering, whatever Pap was in behind bars for. I don't know. I'll never know. But like, I always thought like, at the heart of it, gangs make sense to me. There's many gangs, whatever. You can call it what you want. But as soon as the culture of like romanticizing murder and gunplay come into it, I'm like, well, this is an element that is going to produce a result that we don't like eventually. Like, that's why I kept on bringing up Primo, Book Night, right? Everyone's talking about all these words and all these gaslighting of ideas in the NBA, and I'm like, Book Night might end up being around some sort of murderous thing, and that is the ultimate thing we should be worried about, because as we're seeing, like, the results of having guns and being a part of this conversation is like someone dying under mysterious circumstances.
Yeah, for me, it's also tough with rappers. Like, were Migos gang affiliated before they were actual superstars?
Absolutely, 1,000%.
It's like but maybe they weren't. I just mean you just don't know, right? Like they may have been hanging out and having like their local crew and their buddies, and maybe that fits the rough description of a gang. But maybe as you come up in the ranks and having that credibility behind you, that lends itself to joining gangs later in life. We saw that happen with Tupac, Tekashi 6ix9ine. I mean, part of their success was affiliations with people who were dangerous, and it works both ways.
Well,
like they have money, they have access to music industry, and they get clout in return and protection until they aren't.
But I think definitely, but you bring up Tupac, and his mom was a very famous activist, and like I'm sure she was connected, right? And like I don't even. That's what I mean. Like it kind of has a different tone in 2022 when I'm like, we're like 4 generations deep in these kinds of gangs that we know how to talk about. But this goes throughout history. But the gangs that
I'm just specifically talking about him basically joining the Bloods while on death row.
Oh, like, I mean, for sure that happens. Yeah.
Whether there was ties with him that he created earlier to that, especially when he was in prison, I couldn't say.
I mean,
but like specifically, he joined the Bloods when he was a grown man and a rap star. Maybe
what I'm saying is like Klay Thompson is a basketball player. If he gets traded to the Knicks, like sure, that can shift. But these guys, like I believe, all 3 Migos are related. They're really close family, and I don't know. It's like it is to me. It's not a sinister thing. Like to make this a gang thing is obviously part of the conversation, but I don't know. This is a degree of recklessness and maybe like not valuing certain things enough where like these guys are just getting shot, which is over.
I mean,
stuff.
Also, I don't even know what gang related means.
That's what I mean.
At this point.
Yeah.
Because are we talking about like the classic 90s, like Bangin' a Little Rock, Bloods and Crips? Like that's not what we're talking about here anyway. If something is gang related, it just means your crew or your friends have issues with someone else. Like it doesn't even, that doesn't mean like people are flagging. Like, oh, we're throwing up a blue bandana and you can't, be in this neighborhood. We're talking about just, our friends have problems with each other. It's not necessarily the same thing. And whether those are tied to criminal enterprises or just personal relationships, who can say? I just find the definition of gang related to be incredibly vague. It's like calling someone a hipster.
Yeah, I agree. But the details with this conversation is like it was Jay Prince, right? Like he is the gang guy. He's made a brand off being the mob ties dude. So like
his company is called Mob Ties.
Yeah. So like it's relevant here where it's just like I remember the morning I woke up to someone being like, "Yo, Takeoff got shot dead." And my on the group chat someone's first reaction was like, Jay Prince has a lot of explaining to do, man. I was like, yeah, totally. It's just like, what the hell? Like, how did this happen on his watch? The reason he's famous is he protects people.
And yet this just keeps happening.
Yeah, not the first time. I don't know. It's dark and it sucks, but like, I listened to Culture the other day again in full. God damn, that's such a good record. It is like so moody and weird and just like fucking amazing. That was a good band.
I mean, Benny the Butcher in 2020 got shot in a robbery attempt in Houston. Not to say that Jay Prince has like full reign and everything that happens there is either his responsibility or his responsibility to stop it. I'm just saying rappers getting shot in Houston, not new.
Yeah, especially when he's in the photos. I was scrolling just like trying to find news about it, and I saw pictures of like him, or I saw videos of him like dead on that carpet floor, and I was like, that sucks. I will never get that out of my brain. It's like,
is Jay Prince at this point the only kind of remaining, I don't know, like rap mob boss? Suge Knight, no.
I bet you Puffy still has sway. I bet you.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's a billionaire. I just mean, I'm trying to think who else would qualify. No limit. Baby.
Oh, for
Baby,
sure.
and
right.
Cash Money for Baby for sure.
Yeah, like Master P. We mentioned Master P. I'm sure that is something. The Last Don.
But I just mean he doesn't do anything anymore. Like Master P, like his era and his prominence. You don't hear about like.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Master P's got to okay that. Do
you think Ice Cube still has some power?
No.
He's transitioned to just being like an.
He never.
mogul.
I don't think he ever had any. I don't think he ever had any street power either, though. Just because, like, I mean, he was incredibly popular and a great rapper and had like an awesome career. I don't think he was like deep in the streets in any way, shape, or form. Not like. I mean, I think Eazy-E was the guy out of that crew who had that kind of notoriety. And I don't know, even with Rockefeller, right? It's like that was Kareem Biggs, who was like their street guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it takes different forms as these guys like age into middle age and like real, like big money and huge reach with like their projects, right? It kind of takes different. There's different stakes and there's different kind of behaviors, but like Puff becoming a billionaire, I'm sure is like through a series of connections in the same way like a lot of billionaires accidentally stumble into this, not like just moving a brick from one side of the street to another.
Make it Ciroc.
How much money did he make off that?
Tons. Does he still own it or do he sell it? I don't even know.
I don't know.
But I'm thinking about people's second acts. When we're talking about guys like Noriega, like I think that's cool. I'm
Joe
not
Budden.
saying I'm not saying Nori's been that great lately.
But he does that show where he gets wasted, right? And people.
Yeah,
love
no, but I'm
watching
talking about that, and he's done some really cool stuff with it. I mean, his Kanye episode was not his finest moment, but regardless.
Oh, that's a cool show.
But yeah, he had a second act, and I saw that like Mano has a series on Tubi where I think he's cooking meals for people, and it's kind of a version of like a barbershop type show, but they're eating. But I'm like, Mano, interesting second act for him, and good for him that he's still out there doing stuff, because Mano is a guy who spent something like 8 years in prison for kidnapping someone, and then he got out and he had a couple hit singles and he wrote some rhymes for like Lil' Kim and stuff. But hell yeah, Mano, keep your window of creative expression and fame alive. Like, do a cooking show. I'd love to see it.
I mean, remember Mario Batali's show where he cooked for Malto Mario, I believe it was called, where it was his kitchen. There was like 3 celebrities at his like kitchen bar, and he would like talk and tell stories and cook them like a dish. And the premise of that is great. My question is Mano funny enough to keep this, to make it good? Like, that's a good idea.
I don't know. I haven't seen it. I just saw the thumbnail for it. I interviewed Mano, I forget for what magazine. This was a long time ago, and I think we met at the label, and then we went and ate at there's that kind of touristy Italian restaurant that's right there next to Universal Records. Mm-hmm. I forget what it's called. Ordered some ziti, some lasagna, some bucatine was in the mix.
Right. Just put them all on the same plate. I'm fine.
There may have been actually a chicken parm, which is one of the true parms.
Woo.
In fact.
That was scary. I thought you were going to mention an untrue parm.
But I liked him. I thought he was a pretty charismatic, entertaining guy who, due to his history of incarceration, he's got a really gnarly scar on his face, was very willing to talk shit. And I liked him. So maybe his show is good.
Yo,
I could see Mano being able to pull it off.
Shout out to Mano. Free Mano. What are the details of his kidnapping?
Yeah, so
yo, that was just like a slight. Wait, he went to jail for 7 years for What happened in that kidnapping?
I believe it was over a street beef type of thing, where he did a light kidnapping.
My buddy went to jail for kidnapping in that famous Ryan McGinley incident. Or I forgot the photographer. Remember? I mean, it was someone stole a photo off of a gallery wall. We've told this story. And tried to abscond with it in a cab, I believe. The dealer ran out to try to get the photo again. They were in the car tussling. Somebody jumped on the hood of the car, and it was like a series of like kidnapping because the dealer was in the car like against her will. It was like reckless endangerment. It was like because the person was on the hood of the car, and it was over some like tomfoolery, and he had priors because he was a graffiti writer. So they sent him to jail for a year in Rikers, and he was never the same. He was like, he came out like bitter as hell, rightfully, because all his friends sold him out because he did this with like a crew of people. And he was just like over it. He was just like, yo, man, I have no friends. I don't even like this city anymore. I'm like, that sucks. He was like, but Rikers wasn't that bad. He was just like, I talked to a bunch of people. Everyone just wants to leave. And a year goes by fast. I'm like, yo, that's crazy.
That sucks. So here's I did actually look things up, but this is different because we're recording a podcast.
Yeah,
we're
we're
not in a conversation with
man.
each other. You know, we're journalists. Mano spent 10 years
Oh my
in prison
God.
for robbing and kidnapping a drug dealer.
Oh, to get drugs off the streets? Wow.
I mean, Batman does this constantly.
That's right.
And people praise him. They put up signals for him to come up. I don't see a Mano signal. Look, there's drugs on the street.
Hi.
Can someone abduct that man?
You see me. Right. 10 years, though.
High hater indeed.
Yeah. Did he like tie this guy up? Did he threaten him at gunpoint, or did he just get trapped in a moving car with him?
Was he the one who had the song called All of the Above? Was that him?
I don't want to have to Google this, man. Don't make me Google this. All right.
I don't know if it was or not, but I thought All of the Above was a good answer for your query there.
Yeah, that's right. Featuring T-Pain. 2009. Wow. That's...
You know what? I got to say, man, that was not Wikipedia. That was in my brain. I dropped that All of the Above reference from my brain.
From the top of the dump. Oh, that's an ad. I was hoping for some all of the above-ish, but let's get some.
I really don't like that song, All of the Above.
Wow, T-Pain! Shout out to T-Pain. This is not a jam. No.
Well, it was a very specific era.
Yeah.
It was when he made that record, and then Rihanna had the one with T.I. I believe they were together on a song that was just enormous. But T.I. had that huge record that sounded exactly like that one, and then that was put out. And I feel like Fat Joe probably followed suit, and everyone was making these really anthemic, cheesy records.
Yeah, that was the era. I remember because that's when I was like making a living playing those songs, and it's just like they all sounded like that, man. Versions of that.
Didn't age well, but in another 5 years, we're going to be loving it because the cyclical nature of jams will reward those records.
And, you know, our long since sold out Mano tea, maybe we should bring that back when that all comes back.
Facts. We're doing it.
Big
High hater,
facts.
by hater. Well, I think one of the reasons we've been talking about so much 90s rap, other than the fact that we always do it, and it's a constant theme, is that the Kyrie situation is making me think, and you think, about a lot of these ideas of like what we listened to back in the day. Like rappers from Wu-Tang, New Jerus, Mecca, Medina, The Sands,
Yeah, it's confusing.
Egyptology,
Yeah.
5% Nation, Nation of Gods and Earths. All this stuff is tied to this conversation about Kyrie, but isn't a part of the conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's like I think I was having this debate this week about Kyrie, and a couple of my friends said these reporters are just doing their job, and Kyrie is not protecting himself. Don't say slanderous, inflammatory things. All these reporters are doing is giving you an opportunity to get off the schneid. And I was like, I don't know. A lot of these reporters are kind of ignoring certain things, and like they also have a bias, And I watched ESPN talk about Kyrie, and everyone across Amari Stoudemire was on there, Stephen A. Smith. I'm a huge fan of both those guys, but they were just like, "This is a no-fly zone. We cannot have this discussion." I'm like, not on ESPN, you can't, but like privately, I don't know how these guys feel about it. There's a few players that came out in support of Kyrie. Again, to go on the record, I do not think what Kyrie's doing is okay. But it's turned into a media debate, which is both annoying, interesting, boring, and fascinating.
The conversations that are being had on Twitter about Kyrie are just so starkly different from the ones I've experienced like off of Twitter.
Yeah.
And just the way that
yeah.
Kyrie has been positioned and what he's required to do and again, these conversations are just completely different. Mm-hmm. And without even saying who's right or who's wrong, it's weird that Kyrie is being affected by one of those conversations and not necessarily the other one, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, most people who are not on Twitter are like, wait, what's happening now? Who did what?
I know.
Wait, he has to do what to get back in the league? And they're like, this is also what Twitter seemed to collectively ask for.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is Kyrie's one of the Twitter main characters, so we know how to pounce on him swiftly. I'm involved in this. I talk to the people. I read the people who share their ideas about Kyrie, so I have my eyes on it. And, if this happened to someone like Jaylen Brown, who seems like he shares a few common ideas with Kyrie, we don't know really how to talk about Jaylen Brown because, like, it hasn't been built up. Kyrie has been vilified for years, even before he joined Boston. And the way he left Boston in that fashion, like, we joke about the BMM, but like there's certain gatekeepers in basketball Twitter who tell us how to talk about certain things. Jason Tatum, this is our whole thing, right? Jason Tatum is the perfect champion who just wants it more than everybody. Kyrie, on the other hand, who's actually a champion, is a fraudulent jerk, right? These two things might be true.
Right, and I thought a nice tasty morsel along these same lines was when the Nets were trashed for potentially hiring Ime Udoka. I'm like, well, wait a minute, he's still on Boston's like payroll. Like he hasn't been fired. Yeah. But how are you going to say the Nets are the objectionable ones here and not the Celtics, who had this happen in their building, who may have turned a blind eye, who may have delayed acting on this until after the season was over, but no one wants to investigate what Brad Stevens knew and when. Yeah. And then we're going to say the soullessness of the Nets is exposed. That's right. Your coach, dude.
Yeah, that happened on your watch. And if you didn't know about it, that's even worse on you. But they did.
And the reason we don't know what happened is because no one pried into exactly what occurred, because it happened in Boston and because Brad Stevens would have had to answer for it. And everyone just left that shit alone. So, like, look, I think going and getting Udoka now, questionable move.
I agree.
But let's not make the Nets the bad guys and the Celtics the good guys here, because that's not what this fucking is.
It's like when Dave Portnoy gets on the mic on Twitter being like, I just want to go on the record. I never liked Kanye since day one. He's been such a jerk. He's the worst. Now everyone hates him. I'm like, wait. You didn't like him when? Like, okay, that there needs to be some follow-up questions there. But, like, I don't want to always think that, like, people are dishonest or have ulterior motives. But every time there's judgment, there is bias, right? And I don't think like Nick Friedel or reporters have bad intentions actually, but we've been taught this song so many times, and we're kind of like singing birds. We just pick up little bits, and it becomes a song, but no one's the author of this song.
Is that the chirping of accountability I hear?
Right. But and there are when people say you cannot equate basketball stuff like Boston Celtics beat writers to these awful ideas like anti-Semitism or like anti-science stuff, or even like however you feel about the flat Earth stuff. And while I agree with that, that's unfair to the writers, because the same people who tell us, Stephen A. Smith, who I love, says like this is morally reprehensible, and Kyrie deserves the judgment he has coming to him. And on the break, are the New York Giants for real? You know, like we are all blending all these ideas together, and we can walk and chew gum, but saying there's a difference between a writer who supports a certain feeling they have coming down as an authority and gatekeeper against something that conflicts with their feeling, that's bias, and we have to point that out and take everything with a grain of salt. And you know, the trolley thing to do with Kyrie would be like, well, what did he actually say? I'm like, I think he says a lot by not saying a lot, but the irony is like his silence is deafening. It's like, well, you don't want to hear him say it because he's screwed either way, and he knows it. And he's playing a dumb game with the media, and I hate it. But like, we also are participating in this, and it's ugly.
I mean, first off, Kyrie should have just made this go away. He could have just made it go away by speaking with some clarity in his, press conference. I think it was one that happened after practice. He could have just spoke clearly and made this go away. And he got cute, and he played games, and he talked in circles. Like, he could have just ended this.
But what if he... I agree with that, obviously. And I think everyone on his team should have pushed him to do that. But what if he believes in this thing? Not like wholeheartedly. I think he understands the world is big. Like, can I get you to admit that your wife is not that pretty? Like, just admit it. Just say it. You know, it's you love her. We all know this. We're good. Just say she's not a 10. It's like, well, no. You know? And
Look. I was saying that was my first point. My first point is he could have just made this go away. Right. And instead, as you said, he talked in circles. Well, no, my wife, it's attractive to me. If
she's a loving person.
I can't be anti my wife if I know where I sleep at night.
I mean, like, they put him in an untenable position. And if I was him, well, I like Jewish people, so it's like it's easy for me to say that, but I don't like the Lakers. And if someone's like, just tell me the Lakers are like the best and most fun, I'm like, well, to some, but not to me. It's like, just say yes or no. Are the Lakers the best ever? I'm like, well, that's when I start filibustering a bit.
So I get all this, right? So my thing about Kyrie is, without even talking about anti-Semitism specifically, I do really respect that he has the strength of his convictions. Mm-hmm. He is someone who is willing to endure this firestorm because he doesn't want to be bullied into saying something. He lost millions of dollars because he didn't want to get vaccinated. Like, this is a guy who just chooses bad issues for his moral stances. Now, to him, they're important. To me, I'm like, man, you could be such a valuable person. You're famous. You're incredibly great at basketball. You believe in your moral convictions. You will stand up for what you believe in, regardless of the consequences. If only you had a editor. Okay, so instead of the vax thing, let's do, I don't know, drinking water in Flint and famine in Yemen. Can we do those two issues instead of like posting an Alex Jones video? Can we?
No one's
swap that
picking
out?
up on that though. And Kyrie thinks of himself as an activist. So like that is I agree. Those two topics you mentioned, hugely important implications of human rights and all these things that we actually care about. But it doesn't drive a conversation. And there's protests to a different degree, right? Like, is putting tomato sauce on a famous painting a good way to protest? Like, it worked. Is kneeling a good way? It's like, it fucking worked, right? And I think he senses that. I think he views himself as a truth teller. But it's tricky because in his heart, he's like not quite on the level of one of the great speakers of our generation. Like, we don't really know what Colin Kaepernick thinks because like this is not what he does, and we don't really want to sit down for 2 hours with Colin Kaepernick. Kyrie.
Well, when you look at Kyrie, right? Remember when he didn't want to play in the bubble,
I don't
and
blame him.
he said we should start our own NBA, and people laughed at him. But
That's a
this
good
is who he
idea.
is. This is who he is. He is someone who views himself as a righteous man and
That's
a
right.
leader.
That's right.
And some of his ideas are opaque, right? Like, is he a black Hebrew Israelite? I don't know. Or did he just watch some YouTubes and think it's an intriguing idea?
Right.
You know, like he doesn't make that clear. And I don't think he has to, but it is one of the infuriating things about him is that he's this spongy sort of nebulous force where he's just asking questions, but doesn't really make it clear where he stands, which enables him to always, generally slip around things. But he generally slips around things and still faces the consequences, right? So he never said, I'm anti-vax. He's like, I'm standing up for people who don't want to get vaccinated. I'm like,
Right.
well, what do you believe? And then he'll put something up that's about like vaccination turning people into robots and like alien life forms and snake people. Like, is that what you believe? He's like, well, I'm just, someone else said it, not me. And he's getting burned here for this. But again, as you said, I think he believes he is a leader and a good person and is taking strong, controversial, moral stances. And we look at it and we say, well, this guy's just a troll. And it's true.
Yeah.
He is a troll. But he does a lot of good stuff for charity. If you look at his list of things he's done, the guy is a generous person. He's a good guy. He just keeps getting into bad ideas. And like, I don't know, separating the art from the artist here, I don't know how I stand exactly, but like when people are like, this guy fucking sucks, he's a piece of shit, I'm like, I think it's a little more nuanced than that.
1,000%. And it's just, we're not as we said last week, we're not the guy protecting our family from the zombies. We're the zombies. But, there's people who are like, wouldn't you rather be a zombie? Anyway, like, Kyrie runs out of talent, right? He has an initial, in my opinion, a good idea, and then he veers off of it so fast. Where I'm like, oh yeah, not that path, man. Okay, not that way. Like, someone trying to do good in their world is great, but if they don't have the opinions I have, or if they think that they're doing good by the larger idea and they are wrong, it's hard, right? Like, I don't think Donald Trump ever thinks he lies. I think he's just like, I need to fight for my people. I am the king, And I'm like, I'm not cynical enough to deny that idea. I just think you're awful, And it's really tough, like, going into the midterms that are going to happen this week, tomorrow. And to parse politicians who think they're doing good versus what from politicians who I think are doing good is like a really difficult adult thought. I don't know. It's difficult because I'm not that mature.
Yeah, I'm not excited to see the midterm results, nor am I excited to talk about them.
It's going to suck, man.
It's going to stink.
Yeah.
But, the last thing I was going to say about Kyrie is that I don't know if he is an Israelite and he believes in, the lost tribes and all the sort of mythology and the philosophy and the ideas that we've heard for a long time, right? I mean, if you were around New York, you would see the guys out there on, at Herald Square, or on like 8th Avenue and 42nd, or Delancey, Fulton, and they would be out there and they'd be preaching and they'd be yelling at people and they'd be trying to get people to engage, and they'd
These guys
make
are out there.
like white women cry. And as we were saying about rap music, we are talking about the artifacts and 5%ers and people being from New Jerusalem, like New Jerusalem, New Jersey. Why did they call it Jerusalem? Like, well,
They
and
have
these
a
ideas,
song
I'm
called "Attack of New Jerusalem," which is intense.
yeah, and this has been part of rap culture, and what do you think Kendrick believes? And Carmelo Anthony is a 5%er. Like these ideas that we're now trying to interrogate from Kyrie, I don't think anyone really wants to have this conversation for good reason.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, just make this go away, and then you can go back to believing whatever you want. Because the guy is just kind of like maybe just a run-of-the-mill hotep. Like, we are familiar with them from Twitter and Instagram. That seems to be where his postings come from and his information comes from. Like, are we really trying to, like, get deep into hotepism with an NBA player? I mean, how far do we want to go? Do you really want to ask what some of these guys think about, say, white people? Like, hey, so just to be clear, you guys love white people, right? Yeah. Yeah, of course. Absolutely. You look at these guys, not speaking specifically about Kyrie, but he would be included, and he would say, so you are a young black man. You are the talent. You are the reason that people come and watch these games. Who are the white people around you? Like agents, owners, people in marketing departments, coaches. Like, so authority figures and people who are kind of parasitical to your talent, to you, the star of the show, and this entire industry that's around people that are white, and they are all making money. Yeah. They all have careers, and you've got a window. You're out there getting booed. You're getting yelled at. People are judging you. No one's screaming at the agent. Yeah. No one's getting, mad at the person who works for a sporting goods company. So, like, man, these are things that the sports media world is not equipped to discuss.
Or the world.
Just
I'm not sure.
Just us. Just
right.
us.
I mean, it wasn't too long ago in the bubble, like the Black Lives Matter thing took center stage in the NBA, and I think we all agree that was a great thing. I'm into it still. But of course it's going to end up causing new conversations or starting new conversations, and conversations that were already there to begin with. And Kyrie, not surprisingly, is at the firestorm of one of them, right? And he's just like, well, like, I thought we were supporting me. I'm like, well, it comes with caveats, and you cannot do this, and you can do this, and you, like, Joseph Tsai listing the things he must do, I found to be a bit cynical. I don't think Kyrie is unwilling to do any of those things. I think he would, but the way Joseph Tsai is doing it is shot fired, right? And like, Kyrie is not the type of person to be spoken down to like that, even though he works with Joseph Tsai. I get all that, and he's an employee of the NBA and the Nets. But like, when Joseph Tsai made that, or that became public, I was like, they're going to release him and use this all as an excuse. But clearly, Kyrie Irving does not
here's the
appreciate
list.
Yeah.
Apologize and condemn the movie. 500,000 donation to anti-hate causes. Sensitivity training, anti-Semitic training. Meet with ADL and Jewish leaders. Meet with Joe Tsai to demonstrate understanding. Like, as you said, that's an invitation in Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Vernacular. That's saying you can't come back.
Exactly. You're done here.
So I thought the funniest, or one of the, there's funny things that have been said, but one of the funny things was one of the dudes from Chapo was like, the ADL is making Kyrie Irving play for a really bad Chicago area Jewish high school varsity team. I'm like, that would be a movie I would watch.
Yeah. We do promote it on Instagram. But yeah, it gets dicey, man, and I'm kind of exhausted because it starts all these conversations about what people are comfortable discussing, media, good and bad. And I think most people are right about this, in equal parts kind of hazy. I don't disagree with people being mad at Kyrie, but this is starting a conversation that, like, just growing up in New York, we're just like around quite a bit. But not to say other people don't understand this, but like it's not a shocking thing. And I think if Kyrie gets waived, so be it. I think he might have it coming to him. Like I don't feel like he's been wronged in that. And we're not going to have the whole conversation. I also understand that. Not like on Cookies, another perfect pod having this entire 360 conversation. But like, Nike dropping him was no surprise.
I mean, you look at it, right? And this is, again, as I said, my first point was this is his fault. This is his fault.
I agree.
This was avoidable. He could have just been like,
Not mentioned.
let me clear this up.
Yeah.
But it's like when you're talking about, where this is coming from, and we do have more familiarity with this because of music we listened to and where we lived and people we've known. Like I had a lot of friends who were 5%ers, like, through college and in New York, and like I'm pretty familiar with some of the ideas. And like they basically said, hey, will you denounce the idea that, the black man is the original Hebrew, is the original like Jew? And he was like, I'm not going to do that. And you're like, fuck. Yeah. This is the impasse we're at here.
Yes, exactly.
He's like, I'm not going to denounce that idea.
Yeah.
He's like, whether I believe it or not, I'm not going to denounce it. You're like, well, shit. They're going to get released. He's going to be out of the league for this.
Right.
It just feels surreal.
Yeah, it's just like, do you still think about your ex-girlfriend? Like, explain that to your wife. Like, pick your favorite kid. It's like, I can't do that. It's like, why not? It's so clear. Just say it. And like, I can't do that. It's like all your kids will know what you say, but like, pick one. It's like, oh. And religion is important to people, man. And I think this is paramount to Kyrie's identity. And again, you're right. This is an unforced error. I even think, like, what are you doing promoting that? Like,
right. I'm saying I think he could have just said, I'm not anti-Semitic. I, denounce the anti-Semitic parts of that movie, and he could have still internally been like, I'm the original Jew.
But yeah,
like look, Amare did this better, right?
Yes, yeah, I like the way he did this. Yeah, and he was on ESPN denouncing Kyrie and all that. But like, who knows? I don't know how his friends feel about it. I don't know how he feels about it. But it's not really my business. And like, this is a conversation about Kyrie not necessarily being as interested in the topics we're talking about as opposed to being interested in the way we're talking. He has this annoying, insufferable thing being like, you media are hypocrites. I'm like, oh, dude, enough with this, right? But he cannot shake it and respect. He has our attention. But it seems like he is more interested in this conversation than he is in the topics of this conversation. To your point, he could just say, hey, I'm not anti-Semitic. I love Jewish people. I made a mistake. Hey, everyone, I'm sorry. That's enough to make this kind of go away. Instead, he's got some weird, jumbled up, weird way of saying, like, how can I be anti-Semitic if I myself am, like, dude, this is very confusing. And it comes down to, like, grading a writing paper again.
I mean, it's like when he's saying, how can I be anti-Semitic if I know where I'm from?
Yeah.
He's basically saying, I agree with the premise of the movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, yeah, I'm with you. I think his own beliefs, as I said, very, very hard to decipher. And it does seem as if he is caught up in just being a free thinker. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm intrigued by something I saw on YouTube. What about that?
Yeah.
Why can't I be into it? Why can't I think it? Why can't I say it?
Yeah.
And that the free thinker element of Kyrie's personality has really taken hold in a way that, as I said, it feels like a shame, because I think he could be a really important leader if he just chose better places to take a stand.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm willing to go on the extreme. Like, I don't think he can ever be a great leader because I don't agree with his politics. Right? I just don't. In my heart, I'm like, I think he's wrong, and
I agree.
that's the end.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I just mean like there aren't too many people who have that much strength in their convictions as he has demonstrated, and it's just being squandered.
Yeah, I made a mistake by saying, like, I was with some friends. I was like, he's a certain type of genius, but he's not the genius we think of. It's not good genius, but there's a certain sharpness to him that we don't see in every celebrity, right? Like, Mano has a great idea for a show, but he himself has to be great at it for it to work. Kyrie has a great idea of way to think. I like people who think they're activists and go ahead and try to do good things. I just think he's just wrong along so many turns, right? And there's a genius there that I will not deny, but people laughed when I said that, being like, he's the dumbest person I know. I'm like, I'm not thinking in terms of like what you're thinking of. But it is squandered.
I don't think he's dumb.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he does some dumb things. He has some dumb beliefs. I don't view him as a dumb person, though.
I do not. Yeah. And that's the shame. Yeah.
So we talked about Kyrie and the Nets in an ambient sense, and I kind of looked at the last week, and I was like, holy shit, we didn't even get the Nash firing out of the way last episode because it hadn't occurred yet. Right. Like the Nets really swiftly navigating their way through the media cycle here.
Pretty incredible.
So briefly, because now it feels like old news, specifically because of Kyrie. So Nash is fired. Simmons is out with knee injuries. Mm-hmm. He's missed, I think, 3 games in a row.
Gonna miss
Kyrie is suspended. Like the franchise just kind of collapsed since our last pod.
I know, it's like we're not even talking about basketball anymore, but Cam Thomas, let's go. Kyrie replacement, better than RJ Barrett. It's like we don't want to have that conversation. Like last pod, we were like, all the Nets have to do is keep on playing games, and like there's so much talent on this team that they will end up okay. Now I'm not sure that like this will ever see this team, which sucks, right? Like we keep on getting teased, like, no, you guys are never okay. It's on. Actually, no. Okay, it's on. Like I don't think we're gonna get this team.
I don't either.
40 game
I don't
sample
either
of this team, unfortunately.
Me neither. And I was so excited by the potential of this group of, 3 incredibly talented players, a bunch of magnificent shooters, and even, last pod we talked about, well, hopefully Simmons will get healthy, and Joe Harris and Curry will get back in the mix, and some of these crazy splits that had worked to their detriment were going to be corrected. They weren't going to shoot 32% from 3. They're the fucking Nets. Their opponents aren't going to shoot 44%. Like that represents this huge swing in offensive and defensive sides of the ball where they're just going to get better at. And that's the same reason I looked at Nash's firing and said, he's not being scapegoated. This is an opportunity to fire him.
Yep, right.
You don't say, we should have started better, because you could look at all these variables and say, well, Simmons isn't moving right. Curry and Harris are still not really playing that much basketball. We've shot like shit. Our opponents have been incredible from deep, just flamethrowers. Dallas shot 50%. Indiana shot 50% on like 20, on like 40 3-point attempts or whatever, 45, 50. And you would say to Nash, dude, we know. Oh, you had also the strongest schedule. They're the hardest games. Right. You would look at it and say, there's no way we're firing this guy. Like that's not fair. Mm. Instead, they're like, ooh, one upside to this shitty start is we can fire Steve Nash.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not clear how much these guys want to be there. I'm talking about Nash and Kyrie. Like, I would say Nash he was put in that role because he was handpicked by KD and Kyrie, and I think that was a good idea because, KD is smart enough to like not need guidance from a coach. He's in part of his god level career where he doesn't want like a militant coach telling him what to do. Like KD knows what he has to do. But I don't know. I just don't like the idea that, to your point, that the coach is always the first domino to fall. It's like first fire the coach, then play the players who don't play, then get rid of the superstar. Like it's all so boring, but I don't think Nash is relevant here. So swapping him out is part of the whole like most coaches don't matter. So like just put the next one in.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, under Jacques Vaughn, they've won a couple games. I guess he's doing a better job.
Yeah.
I guess those shooting splits turned around a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess they're playing healthier players.
I was watching the Utah Clippers game last night, and the announcer was like, Utah just played with more energy. And I'm like, is there ever a time where a bad team has more energy and the good team is just better and played with less energy? Like, when you're bad, you just like, there's a cascade. When you lose games, there's just a cascade of like dumb, obvious thoughts to have. It's like, well, it's the coach's fault. I'm like, in the Nets case, the coach doesn't matter, but it's certainly not his fault.
Well, right. It's like, I'm not saying the vibes were good in Brooklyn. Clearly, they were not, and they aren't. But they've won 3 or 4 since this Kyrie incident. And Nash was fired, right?
It must be Kyrie.
They've won 2 of 3. So like the vibes are good now. They've straightened the ship.
Yeah.
Like the disconnect between vibes and culture and winning and losing is always kind of insane, right? We've talked about this before. Like Mavericks, toxic organization. They're doing great. They got Luka.
Suns.
The Phoenix Suns. Oh. They got to get that owner out of the paint. The terrible organization they are.
Celtics.
Smart. They're doing great.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no relationship here, man.
There's no. I was watching the World Series. I hate to talk about baseball, but I was fascinated by this. It was the deciding game. It was like a pitcher's duel. And I think it was John Smoltz who was just like, okay, we're at a stalemate. It's getting to a white knuckle time. Dusty Baker is famous for like in-game changing a kind of environment in the game. He's going to do something in the next inning that will kind of wake his team up. We have to wait to see if it's like a substitution, if he decides to take a pitcher out or whatever, a personnel thing. Is he getting into an argument with the umpire? All these different minor things a manager can do in the middle of a game. And as Smoltz said that, Dusty Baker moves from the right hand of the dugout to the far left hand of the dugout. And he's like, managers don't really do that. And everyone's looking at him. Why did he do that? And his team scores 4 runs. And it was like, I don't know what it is, but just the optics of that were jarring enough to see. And then his team kind of like woke up. And like, while I say like Nash doesn't matter, a move like that can change the fortunes of a team a little bit, just like rearranging your bedroom kind of changes your perception of where you live, for better or worse, depending on how good you are at it. Imagine if I stopped eating over the sink, how happy I would be.
It's funny because, you look at the Nets, right? And they fire Steve Nash.
Yeah.
Kyrie plays in one game I believe in Chicago, where he played really poorly and they lost.
Yeah.
And then the next 2 games, they win. And their defense is magnificent, at least by the numbers, right?
Right.
All of a sudden, the Nets are no longer the worst defensive team in the NBA. They're ranked 22nd.
Right.
You're like, there it is. Nash couldn't coach defense. You know who can? Jacques Vaughn.
Yeah. I don't know how to motivate anybody, and this is the big question, I think, in life. Like, how do you motivate yourself? How do you motivate the people around you? I don't know. But, like, it could be Jacques Vaughn. Maybe, like, it is that. I can't prove that it is nothing. But also, the sample size is really weird. These players are very talented. Some players got healthy. Some players got hurt. I don't know. But,
well, for example, in the game where they absolutely torched the Wizards, the Nets shot 50% from 3, and the Wizards shot 25%.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yep, I could see how that would make a difference.
Right.
And then, the game after that, their opponents shot, let me see where we at. Sorry, looking it up. I'm so bad for the conversation. Shot 33%. So after getting absolutely destroyed from 3-point range up until the last 2 games, we saw a bit of a correction, and their opponents shot about 28% over 2 games, and voila, the Nets are playing defense again.
Do you think that Wizards game, the results of that were swayed by the COVID king, Bradley Beal, maybe being under the weather? Was he already missing games at that point?
That guy always has COVID, I think.
Yeah.
Gobert's
back at it.
They're the Bolsonaros of the NBA. Just like,
But Gobert's vaccinated, right? They're both vaccinated.
I think they both are, yeah. They just stay with that Rona on them.
Or is it like Sean John? It just comes around in cycles and it hits everybody. Like, we'll all be wearing Sean John in a couple of years.
I guess my thing is, what's the over-under on the amount of times that, like, the average person has had COVID at this point? I mean, I'm talking about people who, let's say NBA players, guys who are young, they're socially active, they're around other people, they're not working remote, they're not,
Sure.
They don't have medical conditions that prevent them from being around people. They aren't obviously just, masking in public places. I mean, you gotta figure, like, you're just gonna kind of always have COVID at this point.
I know. Some of it's scary. Some of it's like it has long-term effects, and some people are just like, it's actually a version of something we can deal with. Sort of like kids, right? Like, they're always sick. Now we're always sick. I thought I had COVID the other night, negative, but like, not to brag, but
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I popped negative, man. So
wow,
that's what happens.
Look at this guy, doesn't have that COVID on him.
But this is going to go on for the rest of our lives, right? It's like, do I have COVID? Yes. No.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've only tested when I go visit my folks.
Yeah.
For their health reasons.
Yeah.
And I've only been tested, like, coming back into America when I've traveled before that restriction was lifted. I mean, there are times when I've felt like, I feel kind of gross today, but nothing where I said, I think this is the Rona. I mean, it's just this weird thing where, especially looking at like Twitter, there are still people who are just like entrenched in pandemic thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, they're still talking about it. There was one tweet that went viral the other day, and it was like, I'd much rather have HIV than
Oh
than
my
COVID.
God, Jesus, that's dark.
He's like, in a heartbeat, like, okay, man.
What?
But like, right. There's that little corner of Twitter, the still COVID hysteria, still like rolling along over there. But anyway, to the point, like, I don't even know how these guys are getting tested or when they're getting tested. Like, they must have just felt shitty and got tested.
Right. Yeah.
Which is of course the right way of doing this. If you feel like you have COVID, get tested and make sure that you don't.
Yeah.
Like, that's the proper approach.
I agree. And I don't know. What are they going to miss, like 5 days? It's no longer life-threatening. I think. I haven't checked recently. I know there's always a new strain. But like, I think we're doing this right, Yeah, miss a few games. You'll be back. There's no need to like shut down games anymore or any of that. And we're kind of desensitized, right? Like, Rudy Gobert is out with the health and safety protocols. Like, cool. Is he going to be back for this weekend?
Yes, Covington's out too. There's a few guys, but what I'm sort of thinking is that when push comes to shove, like, no one missed the playoffs except for maybe Paul George, right? I forget, but like, when it comes, maybe did Horford? I forget exactly, but unless someone's feeling really shitty, they are not going to be testing when it matters.
Yeah. I mean, the NBA has a notorious history of that, right? As steroids took over professional sports, somehow the NBA had zero. No one popped off with steroids at all. I'm like, sure.
Just just everyone on the Orlando Magic.
Right.
Which coincidentally was really near the Balco Labs, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, Turkoglu, Rashard Lewis.
Oh, right. They got
Rumors-
popped. My bad. Yeah.
Rumors about Dwight.
Yeah. I mean,
So everyone in Orlando, basically.
I don't know. Yeah, and even drug testing. Of course, there's been NBA players who have been punished for using substances, but like, it never really caught in the NBA like it did in baseball or tennis or cycling or football.
Well, one thing about the NBA specifically when it comes to drugs is that when guys get like popped for a hard drug, they don't announce it, and
OJ Mayo.
they give them a suspension that's excused as injury,
Right.
and then it happens again, and they give them another suspension that is described as injury, and then whatever, by the third time, fourth time, however many times that the NBA just has enough, then it's announced that they tested positive for this drug and they're suspended indefinitely and they're booted from the league for 2 years. You go back and you look at OJ Mayo and you see all these gaps in his history. We just thought he was hurt. They said he was hurt. Same thing with Tyreek Evans. He's just so injury prone. He can't get healthy. This is the year that Tyreek Evans is going to get healthy.
Yeah.
Well, we never knew.
You saying Rudy Gobert's on that Elon Musk stuff? Whatever that stuff Elon Musk is on.
All right, that's a 5-day COVID suspension for doing Molly. Oh, you did a little that penis envy mushroom hit.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's COVID.
I know, and I think of Lamar Odom a bit. Like, he was known as an injury-prone guy until he was like in a great situation in LA, and then I think he played through the playoffs all those times. But looking back,
right,
it's like, Jesus.
Yeah, exactly, right. It's, you go back and you look at Tyreek Evans, you're like, oh, so you were inactive for the first 26 games of the 2016 season.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. And it's like you can just go back and you can see that all over the place. So this has happened.
Yeah.
Oh, the 2000 the other season before that missed the first 20 games of that one too. Then missed the last 35 or whatever it is of the same season. Huh. Weird.
Wow. Are you saying Kawhi Leonard's injury should be investigated?
Yes.
Those big mushrooms, those huge mushrooms he's devouring.
I mean, honestly,
Wow.
I'm saying based on the evidence that I just supplied about Tyreek, OJ Mayo, maybe it's like Kawhi just taking those penis envies, shroomed the fuck out. All right, that's a year. He won't stop doing the shrooms. He just won't stop.
Yo, mushrooms the big as your head, man. As big as his hand. Just like palming those mushrooms.
Kawhi's back. Oh, he's microdosing again. All right, back to the sideline.
Yes. What do you think is happening with Kawhi? Because that knee injury, this recovery is unusual, I've heard.
As far as
he should
be better by now?
He should be better. It's been a long time.
Mushrooms.
It's the shrooms. It is like, what is the hardest drug your friend could do without you being worried? I'd start worrying at like Coke. But if my friend was taking giant mushrooms like Kawhi Leonard, I'd be like, are you happy now? Can you give me some advice about my problems?
I think I would go with horse.
Worse.
Horse. So this is a quote. I can't remember if it was from you or Paul Pierce. But, we don't hold Kawhi accountable enough. That was you, right?
I said that.
You love accountability. That's your favorite song.
My favorite.
The chirping of accountability. We don't hold Kawhi accountable enough because of him being at the status that he is. Okay, so you just answered your own
Go off, Paul.
question, my man.
Yeah.
But anyway, we mention him in the same breath of LeBron, KD when he's at his best. But then how we talk about Anthony Davis not being available. We're going to put Kawhi in that group because we think about his last 4 or 5 years. He's missed about 2 seasons, always out. Ain't really put a lot of games together, but we never talk about that.
Wow, that Washington media mafia coming after Kawhi. Damn.
Well, Paul, yeah, I agree. You've presented a a question and answered it successfully in the same paragraph.
Right. I mean, not being too sarcastic about it. Like, he has a point, right? But
I'm not being sarcastic.
no. In general,
Yes, Kawhi is like a top 3 player on the planet who won multiple championships while being the absolute alpha dog on both sides of the ball. That is why he is at the status he is at, and that's why we don't roast him for being hurt all the time.
Kawhi's genius
Facts.
is he doesn't say anything, right? Like, Anthony Davis is not like a boisterous dude, but he's on LeBron's videos. People hate when players chase like certain opportunities but not others. Kawhi is a ring chaser as guilty as anybody, but I think people hate LeBron so much that AD teaming up with LeBron like infuriated people and made him like a superstar that people didn't think about in New Orleans to a superstar people were obsessed over in LA. Kawhi just kind of is too quiet. He doesn't give anyone oxygen, right?
I mean, we've talked about this, and especially in the magnificent book, The Joy of
Wow.
Basketball,
Woo.
that Kyrie has always been like very suspect in terms of what his agenda is, but has always gotten a pass because he doesn't say anything.
You mean Kawhi,
What did I say?
Kyrie?
Oh, yeah. I definitely meant Kawhi.
Small
yes,
detail.
Kawhi,
Yes.
Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kawhi's always gets the benefit of the doubt because he just doesn't say shit.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think it's that he came out of the Spurs system, and he was viewed, and I think accurately so, as someone who works really hard. He plays defense, and it is funny that how his stoicism and that of Ben Simmons are interpreted totally differently.
I know. And
And they're both like awesome defensive players who are great athletes who have suffered from a bunch of injuries. Simmons' silence is an indictment.
Yeah.
Kawhi's silence is golden.
And remember that Kawhi kind of destroyed the Spurs franchise. He was like a bad teammate and a bad Spur, right? Like, he fought the coach. He refused to play. He had issues with the way they treated his injury, and he just didn't care. He was just like, trade me for whoever. And he was like, I'm going to jump around and just look out for me. But he's viewed as like this lovable guy. It's like, I'm a fun guy, like, ooh, was that a hint into his giant mushroom usage? Was he trying to
Fun guy.
Is he trying to tell us something? Yo, man.
Pretty good, Quo. Pretty good. well done.
Mushroom's the size of his hand, man.
Man, I'm even hesitant to keep potting after that. Like, it was just such a real mic drop pun.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I am a dad.
But the no, it was good. It was good. I'm not being facetious. That was some of your finest work in years.
Thank you. It took a while. It took a minute.
Might be
Zillion.
Might actually be your in 375 pods. This might actually be the best.
Build up the mushroom thing.
But yeah, I think with him, obviously the fact that he was a great player who's had injuries is going to be part of his story. Like, what accountability does Paul Pierce want us to have? That we should be just roasting Kawhi for being hurt? Like, he's hurt.
Right.
I mean, look, I know people roast Anthony Davis, but that's unfair too.
Stat
And
hog.
I think,
Yeah.
I mean, I think he has problems with his game, and there's certain issues that that he only really shot really well in the bubble, which was the most valuable of all titles.
It's the
because
most
it was
difficult.
purest basketball.
Yep.
Hardest conditions, the only chip that really matters, to be honest. But Davis shot great there. He normally doesn't. He doesn't really want to play center. Those are things you can talk about.
Yeah.
But him being hurt, well, I don't know, man. I find it hard to be too critical of someone for missing games.
Dude, and when he gets hurt, most of the times it's him jumping in the air and him crashing down with all of his weight and size on his hip. I'm like, oh yeah, that would end my life. But looks like he's going to be out for like 3 weeks. It's not like is this mysterious. I mean, Kawhi, I think, is also very injured, and that's legitimate. Or he's eating giant mushrooms. But like those injuries are harder to detect. Anthony Davis's injuries are just like in plain sight.
Well, what I wonder about with this Paul Pierce quote, because his main point is that we don't hold Kawhi accountable enough. That's what he's saying. The rest of it is the explanation for why we don't, which I think is accurate. But the main thrust here from that pants pooper is that Kawhi needs to be more accountable, held accountable. He wants the chirping of accountability to be aimed at Kawhi Leonard. My thing is why. Why is he saying this? Does he know stuff that we don't as like an NBA player who lives in LA? Is there something going on where he's like, Kawhi's just doing all these mushrooms and no one talks about it? Is Kawhi just doesn't feel like playing and is resting? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what he's getting at because, as I said, I don't view Kawhi's gimpy knees as something that he should be, shit on for. I think that's something it's sad because I want to see him play. I'm just wondering if maybe Pierce heard some stuff, knows some stuff where it's like Kawhi just hasn't been really interested in getting back on the court. Signed his big contract. He's just kind of chilling. I don't know.
He doesn't like playing. He doesn't want to get better at basketball. He doesn't
Does
love
he
the
have
game.
the yips?
But
maybe Kawhi has the yips.
maybe he's shooting with the wrong hand.
He's doing mushrooms with the wrong hand.
You know why Paul Pierce is angry? Because Paul Pierce will always identify himself as a LA Clipper, and he doesn't want Kawhi Leonard to waltz in and take that shine from him, man. Paul Pierce, that famous LA Clipper.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I view him kind of as a wizard, but I mean, I think he's going into the Hall as a Clipper.
Is this Nets erasure?
I mean, the only franchise that did right by him, in my opinion, those three.
All right, so now, okay, since you brought this up, it's my turn to attack you and your Sixers. Mm-hmm. What kind of mushrooms is Harden doing now?
Oh, well, also the penis envy.
Well, number one, the penis envy.
He's on that.
He's on that for 4 weeks.
So your guy Doc Rivers has been getting a little bit of heat here.
Wow.
I know you will defend him to the grave.
Nick for life.
Doc's grave, your grave, any grave.
MSG legend.
Pick a grave. You will defend Doc Rivers until you're both in that shallow little hole in the ground. They're saying, wait. James Harden's coming back from two seasons with gimpy hamstrings, leg injuries, and Doc, he was leading the league in minutes. Literally 1 or 2 in the league in total minutes and minutes per game. What's going on? Why would you do that, Doc? And you defended him by saying...
It's the shrooms, baby. What do these shrooms, these alien creatures know that we don't know?
I mean, my thing is like, yeah, this Doc probably should have been more prudent. I also don't know if his injury would have been prevented. But like, if you want to bring up some criticism against Doc Rivers, I'm on board.
All right, but like, the Sixers haven't had a nice week. They're almost ahead of the Knicks in the standings. Not quite, but like.
Well, the Knicks just wanted it more than they did the other night.
Always.
Melton just didn't want to hit that last shot, the game winner, enough.
I was like, Philadelphia, Tyrese Maxey, is this your king? Was he slayed by Julius Randle? Wow. Wow.
I actually was playing ball that night, so I only saw the highlights. Yeah. It was regarded by everyone who witnessed it as an absolutely atrocious game. I don't know if you can vouch for that, but talking to my dad, he's like, wow, that game fucking sucked. It's like, that was one of the worst basketball games I've seen in years.
Eddie House works for the Celtics, and he was talking about playing the Knicks. And he was just like, how come the Celtics shot so well from the perimeter against the Knicks? He's like, because they're weak. They're terrible. It's a bad team. Tom Thibodeau coaches their team. I'm like, yeah, like if there's a culture in New York, it's not like enforcement. It's just like ugliness. It's just like war of attrition. There's little beautiful skill there. It's just all like elbows and falling down.
I love players who have grudges against their former coaches
team.
years later.
I have an Eddie
And
House
their former
t-shirt.
team. Yeah, I mean, like this isn't quite the same thing, but Vernon Maxwell always roasting Utah just warms my cold heart. And like Josh Smith trashing Doc Rivers like, on Instagram Live. I'm just like, hell yes.
Yeah.
Tell them how you feel.
Well, it makes more sense that would happen more often, right? Like, I just want more of that. Why is Josh Smith not in the league? Is he also one of those Anthony Randolph Kings, where he's just like, maybe like his breath smells? Maybe he brings in like smelly food into the locker room. Like, why did he leave the league so quickly?
That I don't have a good answer for. Here's a question: Do you believe the idea, talking of smelly food in the locker room, that children of immigrants seem to have this collective story
Oh
that
my
they all tell
God. This is my
about
pet peeve.
going to school and being made fun of for their smelly food?
This is
Did that happen to you, and is this true?
This is the origin story of every Asian person I can think of who tells this story. Like, even friends who aren't famous, they're like, well, I remember my food and so I was like soundly mocked and what was it, bullied maybe is the right word, for being like Asian, by people that end up being like people I don't even dislike. But like, when you're a kid, sure, I don't know, there's a half truth to that, but also no matter what we do, we're getting shat on. So like, I think that's the easiest way to talk about something that no one can deny, because no one's going to be like, well, I think kimchi and mackerel on rice sounds lovely. It's just like, well, and I felt bad. There's a million reasons why I felt bad being Asian around white people, and not as many Asians as I would hoped. But I
Right.
ended up
And
perfect, so
that's
whatever.
Yeah, it all turned out fine.
Yeah, there's no problems here.
But yeah, I feel like that story is one of those ones that you just hear always, and I'm like, I don't recall making fun of kids' food, at the cafeteria table. I'm
Was
just
it
trying
the
to think of
Sean
like,
John?
I mean,
It was-
but if someone one day was like, "Ew, fish," you're like, got it,
Yeah.
for life,
Yeah.
for life. I can tell you how I was ostracized for my smelly lunch. It's like, I guess it does just take one kid to be like, "Ew, that's fish."
I
I'm
think
eating a
it's
PBJ.
I think it's legit, but I had a different childhood because I had just a normal like ham sandwich. But what really made me a target was my Starbury shoes, my Sean John jeans, my Tommy Hilfiger top, and my snapback turned around to the side. Like, that was kind of a bigger issue than the smell of my potato chips.
I was bullied because I was wearing Sergio Tacchini.
Is that a beeper? You're such a loser. No. Stop texting me 911. Who is this? I don't even know what a payphone is.
Is your beeper yellow and see-through, loser?
Is that a T-Mobile Sidekick? Yeah, I think there's a legitimate gripe to that. But I also am tired of that origin
Get
story.
back in your Acura Vigor and go the other direction.
Is that Civic dropped? Well, we got to the bottom of a bunch of stuff, and I think this is a great time to officially declare this as the perfect pod.
And again, had maybe your pinnacle as a podcaster, the Kawhi fun guy thing. You
Thank you.
incredible.
It's
just perfect.
It's a long game, man. It's been like Kyrie.
Played it faster.
I am a activist for laughs.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.